Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Crosby, Stills, and Nash, CSN, were a folk rock supergroup made up of American singer-songwriters David Crosby and Stephen Stills, and English singer-songwriter Graham Nash. When joined by Canadian singer-songwriter Neil Young as a fourth member, they are called Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, CSNY. They are noted for their lasting influence on American music and culture, and for their intricate vocal harmonies, often tumultuous interpersonal relationships, and political activism. CSN formed in 1968 shortly after Crosby, Stills and Nash performed together informally in July of that year, discovering they harmonized well. Crosby had been asked to leave the Byrds in late 1967, and Stills' band Buffalo Springfield had broken up in early 1968. Nash left his band The Hollies in December, and by early 1969 the trio had signed a recording contract with Atlantic Records. Their first album, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, was released in May 1969, from which came two top 40 hits, Sweet, Judy Blue Eyes, number 21, and Marrakesh Express, number 28. In order to tour the album, the trio hired drummer Dallas Taylor and session bassist Greg Reeves, though they still needed a keyboardist. Ahmet Ertegun suggested Neil Young, who had played with Stills in Buffalo Springfield, and after some initial reluctance, the trio agreed, signing him on as a full member. The band, now named Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, started their tour, and played their second gig at the Woodstock Festival in the early morning hours of August 18, 1969. The first album with Young, Deja Vu, reached number 1 in several international charts in 1970, and remains their best-selling album, going on to sell over 8 million copies with 3 hit singles, Woodstock, Teach Your Children, and Our House. The group's second tour, which produced the live double album Four-Way Street, 1971, was fraught with arguments between Young and Taylor, which resulted in Taylor being replaced by John Barbata, and tensions with Stills, which resulted in his being temporarily dismissed from the band. At the end of the tour the band split up. The group have since reunited several times, sometimes with and sometimes without Young, and have released 8 studio and 4 live albums. Crosby, Stills, and Nash were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and all 3 members were also inducted for their work in other groups, Crosby for the Byrds, Stills for Buffalo Springfield, and Nash for the Hollies. Neil Young has also been inducted as a solo artist and as a member of Buffalo Springfield but not as a member of CSN. They have not made a group studio album since 1999's Looking Forward, and have been inactive as a performing unit since the end of 2015. Whether or not this break is permanent remains to be seen, as the group has often been inactive for years at a time. Prior to the formation of CSN, each member of the band had belonged to another prominent group. David Crosby played guitar, sang and wrote songs with the Byrds. Stephen Stills had been a guitarist, keyboardist, vocalist and songwriter in the band Buffalo Springfield, which also featured Neil Young, and Graham Nash had been a guitarist, singer and songwriter with the Hollies.